What would you do at the end of the world when all is lost and hope no longer stirs the hearts of men? Final Fantasy VI dares to ask this question in a game about devastating wars fought for precious resources, empires hell-bent on securing more power, the lost art of magic sealed away so long ago for safety, and finding one's humanity. It's an evolution of the Final Fantasy series that no one could have predicted. It's bold and daring, with a wide cast of characters from all walks of life, from noble knights to treasure-hunting thieves, from derelict soldiers to kings, from feral children to gambling pilots, from hunters past their prime to royal monks, from artistic, magical children to mercenaries haunted by their past, from these three weirdos to a young woman brought into this world through unusual circumstances. Final Fantasy VI dares to ask uncomfortable questions about the nature of power, showing example after example of an empire's brutality savagely ruining the lives of its citizens in the quest for ultimate supremacy. It goes above and beyond by showing that an empire determined for conquest will eventually eat itself alive, leading to betrayal after betrayal, until one supreme leader is left all-powerful and all-destructive. However, this is not a cynical game. Far from it. This is a game brimming with hope. We will discuss the optimism of the game, all things considered, and what it has to say about its themes of war, empire, power, the end of the world, and most importantly, finding one's humanity. To figure out how we got here, let's begin our discussion of Final Fantasy VI with a march down to the Mines of Narshe. At the edge of a cliff in the snowy mountains surrounding Narshe, two soldiers and a young woman sit atop monstrous machinery, overlooking the city in search of something called an Esper. Biggs expresses shock that it could be found 1,000 years after the War of the Magi, but then turns his attentions to the young woman. She's no ordinary woman, as she was able to single-handedly dispose of 50 soldiers. She remains obedient due to a mind-controlling device on her head, rendering her a mere puppet. But who is this powerful woman, and how did she scorch these soldiers? How are they able to control her with this device? All of this can be explained through the aforementioned War of the Magi, fought 1,000 years ago between man and Esper. The War of the Magi was a battle of the gods, and a war waged between Espers and men. Espers were mortals turned into slaves by the gods that wreaked havoc. The War of the Magi came to an end when the warring triad grew weary of fighting and turned themselves to stone. Humans were in search of a great power, the power to use magic, which belonged to the Espers. This war led to terrible tragedy and the destruction of the world, having only been recently built back up with the advent of new technology to pave the way forward. Now, however, a new danger has arisen and a new threat to a world of balance, which will surely bring it to ruin. Someone is foolish enough to try and disrupt the way of things and is in search of the famed magic powers of the Espers. Emperor Gestal is a student of history, and as a student of history he well knows of a forbidden power, a power so mighty that if it fell into the wrong hands, hell, any hands. It could mean the end of the world, which is exactly why Emperor Gestal seeks it. With such strength at his disposal, who would dare consider deposing the Emperor? But an ambitious man is a dangerous man, because he'll stop at nothing to achieve his ends. All throughout the land are men and women who have suffered at the hands of the Empire. City after city has fallen to the Empire, crushing opposition and taking firm control of the land in search of those that brought magic to this world, the Espers. Within the capital city of Vector, terrible experiments are done on captured Espers to extract their power. These magical slaves of the gods are held within tanks and tortured. This process is repeated until Sid, the lead scientist and engineer of Vector, can extract their magic to infuse soldiers with, sometimes to disastrous results. The remains of the Espers are thrown away as useless garbage, but it's not just other beings that are tormented by the Emperor's ambitions. It's his own people too. Take for example the people of Narshe. Upon arrival to Narshe, your crew is met with resistance. While Narshe is a town rich in resources through its mines, and it is located perfectly for defense, it is in fact not well defended. As you make your way through the city, you meet wave after wave of enemies. But these enemies don't appear to be well equipped for battle. They appear to be using rudimentary weaponry that may be merely for mining. They also send their dogs out whose strong jaws will have no effect on your well-oiled Magitech armor. This armor allows you to lay waste to your enemies with powerful ice, thunder, and fire attacks, making this less of a quest for Espers and more of a slaughter of villagers. The woman atop one of the Magitech armors is being controlled by a slave crown. The Emperor's famed engineer and scientist Sid is experimenting on his people, his soldiers, to infuse them with magic. Narshe remains safe for the time being, but the same cannot be said for Tsen or Miranda, now occupied cities where the soldiers do as they please, including organizing dogfights, abusing the locals, and demanding bribes. The Emperor is not satisfied with occupying a few cities, but any city that stands to oppose the Empire under the influence of the rebel faction, the Returners. The Empire uses their levers of power to convince someone to betray their people so the Empire can infiltrate and control South Figaro. Kefka has his soldiers try to burn Figaro Castle to the ground, and later even tries to overtake Narshe, having already decided that his men should kill anyone in sight, including civilians. And then there's Doma, a military campaign led by the noble General Leo, a well-respected leader among soldiers within the Empire and civilians without. General Leo's mistake was in allowing Kefka to remain while he went away on official business. The siege of Doma was going nowhere, as the Doma army defended itself courageously and remained within their castle walls. In fact, many of the Imperial soldiers were taken captive as prisoners of war, but Kefka did what had to be done to break the siege. He took matters into his own hands by manufacturing a letter from the Emperor that would take General Leo away, so that Kefka could orchestrate his own madness. Once General Leo leaves, Kefka poisons the river, not only killing the people of Doma, but even his own soldiers that were held captive. All in the name of Empire. Even still, there are those with a moral conscience that could not bear to uphold the Emperor's wishes. There are those that despise Kefka and all he stands for spread throughout the Empire, but those with the dignity to walk away do not escape unscathed. In the city of Moblis, there is a wounded soldier conscripted from the now occupied city of Miranda. He tried to leave the army when the Imperial army marched toward war with Doma, but he was captured and beaten to within an inch of his life. To pass the time, he writes lovingly to his own love, Lola, still living in Miranda. Love is the one thing keeping him going. All of these crimes against humanity speak to a higher evil within the rotten Gestalian Empire. Rooted in selfish ambition, the Empire's actions cause pain all throughout the land, And it's these increasingly everyday tragedies that motivate our main characters to fight back. They fight not just to save their homes, but for everything they love. But can love bring a world back from the brink of destruction? This game argues that yes, indeed it can, and perhaps always will. Love is a power all its own, but love is perplexing, complicated, and truly devastating. On one hand, it has the power to inspire, but on the other hand, it can bring you to your lowest low. Nonetheless, it's the greatest power humanity has, and it can bring people together to fight for the future. Let's examine exactly how this power manifests itself in each of our main characters to see how it gives them the strength to fight on when oblivion is all around them and hope is nowhere to be found. When God demands retribution for the mere act of existence. Let's get the three weirdos out of the way first. Gogo can be found in the belly of the beast, the Zone Eater. He asks what you're planning to do and goes along with it. He follows your lead. He loves to mimic. Umaro is a Yeti that lives in the Narshe mines. He follows Mog's commands to help in the fight against Kefka. He loves to fight. Mog is the leader of the Mughals that live in the Mines of Narshe. He takes his crew to help Locke defend Terra from the Empire early on in the game. One of the Mughals that joins him is called Molulu. Throughout the rest of the game, he's out on his own unless you call upon him. And when you do, you can find that even he has suffered at the hands of the Empire. All of the other Mughals are gone, nowhere to be seen, including Molulu. All of his friends are dead. All that's left of Molulu is her pendant, which Mog keeps in a safe place as a reminder of all that he's lost due to the Emperor's greed. He fights for all the Mughals that have been lost. He fights for his friends. His life began with tragedy. Left alone to fend for himself at a young age, the wild child has managed to learn the ways of beasts that roam the open plains. The people of Malblis know a fair deal about the meat-hungry green-haired boy, and speak to rumors about his origins. A lonesome man living in the middle of nowhere demands a great deal of attention from passers-by. One of them is Sabin, whom he mistakes for a repairman, asking him to repair a clock. But it's not long until you start to realize that this man has some form of relationship with Gao. One of the women of Malblis has heard tell of him, a man that has lost his marbles, having thrown out his own child, calling it some kind of monster. When confronted about the child he tossed away carelessly, he denies it vehemently. The man is haunted by dreams of a demon child being born. He grabbed it and rushed off to the veldt as it cried. He ran back, and once he turned around, he saw a frightful monster. Given that we never hear anything about Gao's mother, it can be assumed she tragically died in the process of giving birth. To cope with the pain, he turned to drink. Even Gao recalls that his parents' house smelled of alcohol. However, Gao is not without a family. He's happy to know that his real father is alive, but he's even happier to be in the company of friends. To prepare for this meeting, the whole crew trained him in manners. They taught him how to eat, how to dress, and how to present himself. Well, there was an attempt at least. These people are not only his friends, but his true chosen family, and it is for them that he fights. The fastest pilot in the world, in fact, the only pilot, is a gambling man who likes the thrill, the sense of danger, and most importantly, he likes the odds. He is an unpredictable man that swings from dangerous romantic to valiant hero. Although his introduction is dubious at best, with his plan to steal the star of the latest opera, Maria, he proves himself to be a man of hidden depths. After the world has been destroyed, as well as his airship, he gives up on everything. the weight of the world is crushing him, and it's too much to bear without his wings. But with a little encouragement, he finds the strength to fight on. He was lost without a dream, but he finds a new one. To do that, he has to make a stop at an old friend's tomb. Down in the depths of her tomb, he relives treasured memories of his dangerous flights with Daryl. They had a healthy, combative relationship. She asked him to take charge of her ship should anything happen to her, but he refuses to do so unless he can finally beat her in a race. This leads to an epic race through the skies, which Daryl wins handily, shaking her rudder and leaving him far behind. Tragically, she never returned to see him again. Later on, he found her ship, restored it to flying shape, and put it down below in case of emergency. It's with this buried treasure the famed gambling man can fly high and soar the skies once again. That regained confidence turns the tide. No longer does the team have to live in fear of the oppressive, dreary world created by Kefka. Now, they can meet him at his level, take to the skies, and continue searching for friends. Strago is a much more grounded character, seeking to live his life out to the end of his days in serenity and peace in the quiet town of Dhamasa. Strago takes care of his granddaughter Relm, teaching her life's most valuable lessons. Dhamasa has a secret, though, one that the residents of Dhamasa don't want outsiders to know. There's something rather strange about the people here, always trying to hide something as they notice us listening nearby. All of that is done away with when disaster strikes. A house full of fire rods is burning to the ground, and Relm is inside. Strago needs your help. Despite the presence of outsiders, Strago begins using magic, something unheard of in the rest of the world unless you're the child of an Esper or a super soldier infused with the essence of Espers. These people, the people of Dhamasa, are actually the descendants of the Magi. After the war, the Magi were cast away, even hunted down and executed with sham trials. But once the world is destroyed, Strago ambles mindlessly with the other cultists until Relm speaks sense to him. Returning home to Dhamasa reveals a lot of subtle things about Strago's true character. An old friend, Gung-Ho, comes in hurt by the beast Hydon that they dreamed of taking down one day. They went after him once, but were too scared to go for it. This is where Strago's blue mage abilities tell the story. When Strago first enters your party, he only has one magic attack. As a blue mage, he learns abilities when enemies hit him with magic. Once he learns them, he doesn't forget. However, he only has one attack. And given that he ran away from Hydon in the past, it would suggest that Strago's days as a brave adventurer were short-lived. In the present day, Relm encourages him to take on Hydon with the team so he can find new life within himself and recapture the glory he left behind long ago. Once accomplished, he gloats and gloats, fresh with inspiration, energy, and vigor, retelling the story as he saw it to Gung-Ho, who seems a captive to the part he played to get Strago to break out of his shell and face his fears. For that, Strago fights to bring a better world for his lovely, spunky granddaughter, Relm. Relm is a cutie pie with a lot of spunk. She is a pictomancer able to capture the essence of beings with her brush. After the world is ruined, she finds work fixing up a painting for Auser. The painting is haunted by an evil spirit, but her work and a little elbow grease do away with the spirit so she can join us on our quest. Most importantly, Relm is without a mother or a father. Well, not exactly. When you first visit Dhamasa, Shadow makes a point to not get too involved. His dog, Interceptor, becomes very soft and friendly with Relm. Perhaps it's because of the purity of her heart and the innocence of childhood, but in reality, Relm is Shadow's abandoned daughter. Shadow is the one to save the day in the burning building, rescuing all of us. The next day, when everyone wakes up, Relm lays in bed. Shadow can't even look at her, though perhaps he's watching over her in the reflection of the vase before him. There's more to this story between the two estranged family members beyond a loyal dog, but as far as Relm is concerned, she fights for her loving, doting, obnoxious grandpa, who she can't live without. Death is only ever a step behind Shadow. A mysterious man in black comes and goes as he pleases. We are first introduced to Shadow as we enter South Figaro. Edgar recognizes him and warns the team not to get close, as he's ruthless enough to even kill his best friend. Throughout the rest of the game, he joins your party as it suits him, for a time joining Sabin on the outskirts of the Imperial encampment before departing again, refusing to embark on another journey when you find him again in Kolinkin, joining you on your trip to Thamasa with General Leo's coin in purse. Is Shadow but a lonesome mercenary embarking on quests for the right price? No. Even this shinobi has something deep inside beyond a thirst for profit. As mentioned before, Shadow is the father of Relm. But who was Shadow before he became enshrouded in darkness? Throughout the game, if you go to an inn with Shadow in your party, he will have 5 different dreams. In the first dream, you see a young man surrounded by a black, dreamy landscape. Suddenly, another man appears accusing the young man named Clyde of some type of betrayal and stating he should be here with him. Perhaps Shadow hides his guilt behind the mask, donning it to begin a new life. The other dreams reveal more about Clyde. In the Phantom Forest, Clyde and his partner Barum managed to successfully pull off a great heist of up to 1 million gil. Barum suggests that they call themselves the Shadow Bandits. The next dream, however, reveals how Clyde betrayed Barum. One of their heists did not end successfully. Barum was wounded, bleeding out, dying by the riverside. Fearful for what could become of him, Barum asked Shadow to kill him. He was afraid of what they'd do to him if they caught him and knew that if he tried to stick by Clyde, he'd only slow his fellow bandit down. He was shaking, quivering, too proud to wet himself and die. How could you ask me to do something like that? Clyde couldn't do it. Clyde apologizes and takes off. Barum can only ask him, "How could you?" In the following dream, Clyde has found himself in the town of Thamasa, all alone save for a woman and her dog. She takes him in and the dream ends. When in Thamasa, Shadow has a dream where the dog chases after him as he's getting ready to leave off on his own. He apologizes to the dog and asks it to stay behind with his daughter so they can both live in peace. He runs off. The dog looks back, then follows him, and the dream ends. But being the neglectful father of Relm and a former bandit doesn't fully explain who this enigmatic character is. There's something more to him still. When you get ready to fight Emperor Gestal and Kefka on top of the floating continent, Shadow joins your team after being betrayed by the Empire. In the final confrontation after Kefka goes dancing mad, it is Shadow who tries to bury Kefka under the weight of the warring triad, demanding the others run off without him as he handles his business. If you wait long enough, Shadow manages to escape, and in the world of ruin can be found in the finally built Colosseum where you can challenge him one-on-one before he agrees to join you one last time. After you defeated Kefka, at a certain point, Shadow stops running, content with his life, feeling like he's accomplished what he needed to, stating, "Barum, it looks like I can finally stop running. Come and find me, all right?" There is a theory circling around the internet about what that could mean. Why now can he stop running? Because the world will be at peace finally, as he wished Relm and Interceptor to live in? Or because he has atoned for a past sin that stained his soul forevermore? For now, it's enough to know that Shadow fights for his friends and family. Speaking of men whose souls are stained by past sins, Locke is haunted by his mistakes. One day, in his younger years, Locke lived in Collingen with the love of his life, Rachel. They were hunting for treasure in a cave when an earthquake disrupted the adventure as Locke nearly fell to his death, but Rachel saved him, suffering from a terrible fall. Rachel's unable to fend for herself, and her father banishes Locke from seeing her. When he comes to, she suffers from amnesia the way Terra does. Locke is advised to leave by a thief. To make matters worse, the Empire strikes and she falls victim. Just before this happens, she remembers her life and asks, "If a man named Locke returns, please tell him that I love him." Ever since then, Locke has made it his mission to protect the women in his life. At the beginning of the game, when Terra is terrorizing the people of Narshe under the influence of the slave band upon her head, Locke helps her escape. Later, he meets the Imperial General Celes. It's here where Locke takes it upon himself to right his wrongs and do right for once. Traumatized by his failures with Rachel, Locke chooses to do everything he can to protect her. Celes is a military general for the Gestalian Empire that's received an infusion of magic, giving her the rare ability to use magic at a young age. She is infamous for her campaign leading to the destruction of Miranda. At some point, though, she considered whether her actions were justified. As a result, she becomes a traitor to the cause and is held prisoner, potentially because she learned the extreme lengths Kefka was willing to go to eliminate Doma. She was set to be executed when Locke sprang her free. When it comes to Celes, he forms a strong bond of trust with her when she's already lost faith in herself. After everyone defends the frozen Esper in Narshe, Terra flies away in her Esper form to Zozo, where the Esper Rama takes care of her. Celes volunteers to lead everyone into Vector as she has the most experience in the capital, while Locke volunteers to accompany her in search of legendary treasure. To get inside, they're going to need aerial support, and just such an opportunity presents itself when they make it to the town of Jador. An opera singer by the name of Maria is under threat of kidnapping by the gambling man himself, Setzer. Celes and Locke plot together to have Celes play the part of Maria so they can sneak inside of Setzer's airship. Locke checks in on her before the big performance, blushing when he sees her in a stunning dress. Celes presses him to know why he stood up for her when he did. He responds that he's tired of just standing by while he loses the girls he likes. She cuts to the heart of the matter as he makes his exit, asking, "Am I just a replacement for her?" Unable to answer the question, he compliments her ribbon. Inevitably, Celes, Setzer, and Locke join forces and head into the Magitech research facility. There we meet Sid, who implies Celes has faked her betrayal of the Empire to infiltrate the Returners and put a stop to the Resistance. At this moment, Locke hesitates, fracturing all that they've built together. Kefka arrives just in time to ruin everything by restating Sid's message. Celes asks if Locke trusts her, but Locke hesitates. The political tensions are high when the fate of the world is at stake. Celes tries to prove herself by teleporting Kefka and herself out. No longer willing to let the women in his life suffer, now he's the one suffering. It's not until later, when they're reunited after the Emperor's so-called capitulation, that the bonds between them can be reforged. But the tears in the fabric are already there. Left alone to fend for herself after the death of Sid, Celes is about to give up hope. She had managed to survive the attack, and wound up on an island with Sid where they had originally survived with others. Tragically, one by one, they started to take their own lives. The world is a desolate wasteland. Hope is futile, and the possibility to start over seems all but impossible. The music sets the tone. When you go out to hunt for fish on the shoreside, littered with the remains of Setzer's airship, the oppressive state of the world comes bearing down on you sonically. Even the monsters you face are so withered that they perish to the climate of the world. Once Sid leaves the mortal realm, like the others before her, Celes climbs to the top of the island's peak and contemplates what to do. There's no one left. The last person she thinks of before deciding there's nothing left for her in this world is Locke. But he too is gone. With that, she positions herself at the edge of the cliff and drops off in a tragic suicide attempt framed exactly like the opera scene from before. Both moments are seen through the eyes of Celes and have shifted the concepts of what is possible in video games ever since. The opera is a remarkable scene in the game where Celes is able to put herself in the shoes of Maria, the girl whose life is torn asunder by war. Her lover Draco sent off to fight the East. She too is separated and left to fend for herself in her castle. When even her castle no longer remains a safe haven from the war as it falls to the east, Maria contemplates the events of her life. She ponders whether she is truly meant to be with the cruel Prince of the East, or to see her beloved once again. Ultimately, she realizes that no matter what happens, and no matter how long it takes to meet again, their love will never change. She tosses her flowers away before she's requested to meet with Prince Ralse for a dance. This moment is significant, not only for its daring approach to portray a narrative within a narrative through an opera in a video game, where art imitates life and we see directly how even royalty is harmed by waging war, but because this is a moment where Celes can really come to terms with herself and adopt a new path forward. Echoes of the opera chime in, becoming her theme in this moment as she edges closer to the edge of despair. Once a mere soldier with no identity, now she has taken on the mantle of the lovelorn Maria, whose despair has guided her to accept that no matter what happens through war and chaos, her love remains. When Celes finally gives up and throws her life away as she threw the flowers in the opera, she recognizes that all her efforts to undo the damage she's caused in the name of the Empire were wasted. The connections she made with the returners, especially Locke, are gone. Hope for the future has disappeared. There is truly nothing. But then, Celes winds up on shore, and she encounters hope in the unlikeliest of places. A messenger bird wearing a blue bandana stops on shore as she awakens. Initially, she wants to drive it away, not believing she's worthy of it watching over her. And then she notices that perhaps the blue bandana is a sign that Locke is alive. Feeling suddenly inspired, she returns to the cabin and finds Sid stowed away a secret ship just for her. She boards it and makes it to a larger continent where remnants of civilization keep still under the oppressive gaze of Kefka, god of destruction. One by one, she finds everyone that was part of the returners and recruits them to fight Kefka to the death once and for all. Eventually, Celes hears word of a place called the Phoenix Cave, where Locke ends up. He's deep inside the cave, having already collected the treasure because it's home to the one source of magic that can save Rachel from her fate. Collecting the Phoenix Magicite actually gives Locke a brief moment with Rachel. The cracked Magicite floats above her, shattering into countless shards. In her last moments, using the last of the Phoenix's strength, she thanks Locke for everything. She tells him, "Please, cut free from the chains that bind your heart. Give your love to the one who has that place within your heart now. Love her as you have loved me." He gave her happiness. As she floats away, Locke calls her name. She transcends into the spirit of the Phoenix. Locke makes his way up the stairs where Celes tries to comfort him, but he has no need. He's finally at peace. The only thing left to do is fight Kefka. Perhaps the most tragic warrior joining the cause of the Returners is Cyan. He is a trusted knight of Doma with a vexed mind. We're first introduced to Cyan during the siege of Doma as he rightfully defends his home from Imperial soldiers. He's charged with protection of Doma's king, but he never could have expected Kefka's plot to poison the Doma River. He dashes through corridor to corridor in vain as he tries to secure the king's safety. But it's too late. The soldiers of Doma are dropping, one after the other, and once Cyan makes it to the throne room, he finds that the king too has fallen. In his last moments, the king regrets that he was unable to protect the kingdom and expresses his fears for the loyal Cyan. With his family on his mind, Cyan rushes to his lodgings and finds an unspeakable horror. His loving wife Elaine lies dead on the ground, and their son Owain too falls victim to Kefka's war crime. What must it feel like to see your entire life's work crumble before you? To see your comrades in arms fall victim to a wicked clown's devices? To see your noble leader groveling on the floor as his life drifts away? To see your kingdom overrun by unthinking goons? To see your wife and child lie dead before you, powerless to help them? Cyan's crisis motivates him to seek revenge on the Empire. His bloodlust is readily apparent as he death marches to the Imperial encampment, crazed with rage and ready to battle whatever comes before him. Once Cyan calms down and agrees to work with Shadow and Sabin, they make their way to the Phantom Forest as they search for a way to make it to Narshe to protect that forsaken city. Within the Phantom Forest, there is a train station to board the Phantom train. This is the place where the recently deceased pass on to the next world. It's a dark place, full of spirits. Once you've suplexed the Phantom train into submission so that you may get off and avoid being taken to the next world too early, Cyan sees his wife and son boarding. Cyan cannot keep up with the train, but hears their passing words of love. Elaine had been so happy. Owain will practice his swordsmanship to protect his mother. Cyan can only look on as they ride off into the distance, never to be seen again. After the end of the world, there are words whispered of a strange man with an unusual manner of speech. It's not until you meet Lola again that you realize something is off. The wounded soldier is long gone. Moblise is a wasteland with no one populating it save for the surviving children and Terra. With a little help from a birdie and some word of mouth, you can find Cyan hiding away in Mount Zozo, his cave full of silk flowers and a space for writing letters. In Cyan's most recent offering to young Lola, he expresses remorse for perpetuating a lie that he is her lover. He needed a way to express the love he still has for his wife, and he saw himself in her. Just as he thinks of his loved ones every day, she too was writing a letter each day, despite not receiving one in return. Not wanting anyone else to suffer as he has, Cyan role-played as the wounded soldier, but the imitation is just a fantasy that won't help either of them cope with reality. He writes, "We humans have a tendency to become trapped in the past and refuse to move on. I implore you not to let this happen." As Cyan sends a letter off outside, a verse of poetry appears on screen. "Memories of the world before the fall remain, but the light of dawn doth never change, nor err the hearts of men." Simply written, but potent with feeling, the poem acts as a reminder that we have our memories of a time long past, but there is always tomorrow. The last line could be a reminder that we as humans still have our hopes and dreams, and those we love will never be lost. Although Cyan seems to make peace with his loss at this point, his soul is still troubled. Taking a trip to Doma to see Cyan's old haunts begins the journey to saving Cyan's soul. As it turns out, Cyan is still deeply troubled, but it's not just his memories. A demon named Rexol has latched itself onto his grief and is consuming him from within his dreams. It's up to your party to enter Cyan's mental space and save him. His dream space is a maze of psychedelic torments led by 3 stooges. As you continue through the dream, you'll return to the Phantom Train. This nightmare allows us to see all the deepest fears that Cyan has. The Phantom Train's switches are confusing and seem unnecessary, but reflect Cyan's fear of modern technology. This has been present through the game through his lack of understanding of how to operate a Magitech armor, or his collection of books he kept in his hideaway on Mount Zozo. Another portion of Cyan's nightmare is a never-ending cave where you run into an endless barrage of Imperial soldiers, mechanical monstrosities, reminders of those that ripped apart his life. Rexol will use anything to get at Cyan and feeds off of his torment over what happened to Doma, his family, and the world. All of Cyan's sorrow, anger, and hatred only make Rexol hunger for your party's own insecurities. Once you're able to wrangle Cyan's soul free, he thanks you, having found strength in the voices of his wife and child. Their spirits appear to commend him for everything. Cyan still feels insecure, believing he's a man without honor who could do nothing. As the reunion lasts but a moment, Cyan feels there's not enough time. There's still more to say, but they sacrifice themselves by becoming a powerful sword, the Masamune, with their final parting words simply being, "We'll always be at your side." Cyan is finally able to put his mind at rest and fight for a wife and child who live beside him. The royal brothers of Figaro stand as the backbone of the returners. Edgar in particular, the king of Figaro, secretly supports the revolutionaries, providing them with a relatively safe environment and the only form of support that never falls to the Empire. Knowing that their people are counting on them, Edgar also realizes that people from other kingdoms also rely on an open and free environment to thrive. Their backstory is marred by tragedy, for when they were young, their parents inexplicably died before either son was prepared to take over the kingdom. Though they had been trained and educated in the ways of royal politics, neither one felt ready. Sabin in particular was anxious to find himself and avoid the weight that comes with wearing the crown. Seeing his brother's anxieties up close gives Edgar the idea to take on the burden, as all the citizens of Figaro are counting on strong leadership and a smooth transition of power. He confronts Sabin about the situation and offers to flip a coin, leaving their futures up to fate. Wisely, Edgar counsels that there would be dire consequences to both of them leaving. He discussed his plan to abdicate the throne with his brother so they can live freely and seek revenge after he heard the dreadful rumors spreading about a plot to poison the king by the Empire. The coin is flipped. Heads, meaning Edgar shall rule, allowing Sabin the freedom to cultivate his abilities while training as a monk in the mountains. For years, Sabin trains hard to learn powerful techniques to better protect those he cares about, growing as big and strong as a bear. In a scene inside Setzer's airship when trying to convince Setzer to join your cause, the same coin is pulled out. It's double-sided. After Locke and Terra escape from Narshe, Edgar offers a safe haven for the amnesiac, but it's not long before Kefka shows his face and threatens to burn the entire kingdom down. Edgar has a plan. He's something of an engineer, having modified his castle to be able to traverse from desert to desert. After the escape, he witnesses a miracle. Terra uses magic as they run from Magitech soldiers. He and Locke are shocked. But it doesn't stop them from saving her, because she can be a valuable asset to the cause. They decide to use it to their advantage. After a quick trip to Figaro, they're reunited with Sabin, who has been cultivating his spirit for 10 years on Mount Colts. Along the way, you come across an abandoned house full of accoutrements belonging to Sabin. He's left in search of his master Duncan, whose other protege, Vargas, is hunting Sabin down. His envy for Master Duncan's affections have driven him to madness, creating a desire to kill his master, his own father, and destroy his rival protege, Sabin. The sun beams down brightly as the fog rolls on the mountain range as Sabin comes to protect his brother and fight Vargas to the death. Once the dust settles, Sabin relates his fear that Figaro would become a puppet state with how the Empire is behaving lately. Edgar vows to never allow himself to placate the Emperor again. Sabin asks to join the cause so that Master Duncan has a reason to rest in peace, knowing that his training will go toward the cause of peace. After the end of the world, as you hear rumors of your long-lost friends through the wastelands, you finally come across Sabin in Sen, shortly after Kefka unleashes the light of judgment for not bowing down to him. Edgar is working on a way to get his kingdom back as he works with the thieves he previously had imprisoned to find Figaro buried beneath the sands. Together, they join the fight against the Empire's mightiest warrior for peace and for each other. Enter Terra. Terra's story begins with her father, an Esper called Maduin. One day, in the village of Espers living near the entrance, he comes across Madeline, a human, the first in centuries to cross the threshold into their domain. At first, she feels unwelcome by the Espers, promising to leave as soon as possible. However, Maduin warms up to her, and they fall in love, producing a beautiful baby girl, Terra. It's not long after Terra is born that a new set of humans arrive, but they're not looking to escape the rotten nature of humanity. Emperor Gestal has decoded the ancient texts to find passage into the Esper world. He's brought his soldiers to seize all Espers to extract their powers. One of the elders begins activating the seal to close off the Esper world forever. The Emperor and his soldiers are sucked out of the world back into their own. But unfortunately for Maduin, his wife and child are taken away, so he must follow them. When Emperor Gestal comes to, he takes notice of Terra and realizes he's discovered something truly special, something he can build his empire around. The child of a human and an Esper, a child capable of using magic. For the next 18 years, she spends her life in Vector, enslaved by the Emperor to help him locate any remaining Espers around the world. Deep in the Mines of Narshe, Biggs and Wedge lead Terra to the frozen Esper. Its frozen body sends chills down the bones of your party members, and then it begins to glow. This phenomena is difficult to explain, but even more difficult to explain is how Biggs and Wedge blink out of existence. Terra and the Esper face each other when suddenly lightning strikes a connection between the two, bringing forth flames until she whites out. She wakes up wrapped under the covers of a warm bed inside a house within Narshe. A kindly man has brought Terra back from the mines and removed the slave crown enslaving her. As of now, she's suffering from amnesia. It's not long before remaining forces of the Narshe militia come to search for the Magitech armor pilot. She runs off, but the only place to go is the maze of mines where she's eventually cornered until she falls into a newly formed pit. As Terra slips out of consciousness, a memory of a mysterious man called Kefka shows that he is the one that placed the slave crown on Terra. It is Kefka who has her scorched soldiers with the fire beam to test out the slave crown. Shortly thereafter, a ceremony held by the Emperor atop the imperial city of Vector takes place. The Emperor ushers in a new era, where his empire will lead. He orders everyone to help claim their rightful dominion. Nothing shall get in their way. Enter Locke, a member of the Returners, a secret organization resisting the Empire that's unsuccessful in swaying the hearts of the people to their side. Locke is tasked with bringing Terra to the kingdom of Figaro, where King Edgar resides. Locke takes Terra back to her room and reveals that Edgar is in league with the Returners. Terra is hurt and confused, knowing she's an Imperial soldier. She feels she's out of place. But Locke reminds her that what's most important now is the decisions she makes from this point forward. She has the chance to be her own woman, to be independent. He asks her to rest while Edgar wakes up from his rest. Everything is in disarray as Figaro Castle burns to the ground. Kefka demands Edgar to turn over Terra, but Edgar has another idea. He escapes on the back of a chocobo with Locke and Terra, then commands for his castle to be sunk into desert sands, much to the surprise of Kefka, who in turn commands his soldiers to kill the runaways. While fighting these Magitech armored soldiers, Terra catches both Locke and Edgar off guard by using her magic, something only those closest to Terra would have seen. Meanwhile, the Imperial soldiers are just standing around, waiting for you to do something. Yeah, they're not that motivated to do their job, are they? Blame poor leadership. After defeating the soldiers, they blow past Kefka, who curses you. Edgar asks that Terra meet with the leader of the returners, Banin. Her magic powers could turn the tide against the Empire, for if they were to gain control of her again, or if she willingly joined them, their use of magic would surely mean the end of the world. We head off to the secret hideout of the returners and are greeted by the leader Banin, who metaphorically refers to the Empire's conquest in search of the power of magic as Pandora's box. The ambition to control such incredible power leads to war, conquest, and terrible violence. The conditions necessary to bring out the worst in people, such as pride, greed, and wrath. The only thing remaining within that box, of course, is hope. Terra is the symbol of that hope. Her power is all that stands in the Empire's way. Terra feels she has nothing to fight for, and this is where a central theme of the game comes in. Locke won't hear of it that she has no one. He assures her that there are people out there that Terra is important to. Out of respect for Terra, and a desire to not follow the same path as the Empire, the returners allow Terra the grace to make her own choice on whether to join them in the resistance. With the freedom to make up her own mind, Terra ultimately sides with the returners, but she's scared. There's still so much she doesn't know, and the future seems uncertain. Banin comforts her, presenting her with a piece of equipment to keep her safe before asking her to gather everyone together. The Empire has employed the finest scholars from around the world to study espers, to develop their Magitech weaponry, and to help in the search for espers in the human world, and a way to open the seal to the esper world. The Esper of Narshe is one of many espers that was vacuumed out. Fear strikes the returners, who clamor over the possibility of a second war of the Magi. Banin explicates a theory historians have about magic power. Magitech power comes from espers whose energy is drained to power both machines and man through infusion. A return to this power could ultimately lead to destruction. So Edgar suggests an arms race of sorts by trying to acquire their own Magitech weaponry. Banin denounces this offering and suggests more peaceable terms. Speak with an esper. This would require Terra's help. With the weight of the world on her shoulders, Terra acquiesces. All seems to be moving forward smoothly until a wounded soldier for the returners rushes in, collapsing to the ground to warn of the fall of South Figaro, and they're heading right for them. Locke is sent on a special mission to infiltrate South Figaro and slow down the enemy. The rest of the team will make their escape down the Leith River and head to the Mines of Narshe, but not before a little distraction fighting the comic relief, whose power is enough to separate Sabin's zealous warrior spirit from us. With the team split, Banin, Edgar, and Terra venture forth to Narshe, but are met with harsh resistance. With both men being pushed back aggressively, Terra brings them to the secret passage that Locke brought her through before. After sneaking in, Arvis informs your team that everyone in town is on edge, and has been since the Esper was found. In Narshe, Banin holds a meeting with their leaders. He confirms the greatest fears they have about the recently discovered Esper. War is coming, and the end goal is magic. In the sandy deserts of Figaro, the Imperial army march forth toward Narshe. Kefka conveys his commands as he leads the charge, demanding blood. No one is off limits, including civilians. After all, There's a reason oppose rhymes with dispose. Everyone agrees to defend the Esper from Kefka. They hike up through Narshe, making their way to the top of the mountains to defend the Esper. Edgar advises Celes to not look too deeply into Locke's protections of her, hoping and failing to make his move. Terra and Celes have their reunion too. They discuss the nature of their magic abilities. Terra's coming naturally, while Celes has been infused with the power. Terra cuts through the small talk to ask if it's possible for Celes to love other people. Celes can't help but be confused, wondering if Terra is mocking her. Finally, Cyan stops Celes, warning her that he doesn't trust her in the slightest. At this point, Kefka is quite easy to take care of, but strength isn't everything. It takes intelligence and the willing to snuff out your enemies to rise to the top. However, for Kefka, it is not this day. He won't forget it though. Back at the edge of the Narshe mountain cliffs, the Esper begins to glow. A great power disrupts the peace, shockwaves blasting everyone away. Terra walks up, unfazed, desiring to know more. She begs the Esper to tell her what's going on. Most importantly, she wants to know who she is, where she came from, and why she has these powers. The Esper begins to respond to her, transforming the amnesiac girl into an entirely new entity through a transfer of power. Terra flies off away into the distance, and the rest of the team is left to scramble for survival on the cliffs. When Locke wakes up, he finds Celes overlooking his recovery. They discuss Terra's fate and remark that she looked like an Esper. With everyone huddled together, a new game plan is developed. The team will split up, with some using Figaro to burrow through the desert to new lands in search of Terra, while the rest will keep guard in Narshe in case of another Imperial assault. Down south in the city of Jidor, you can find severe class disparity. Those with the means enjoy themselves at the auction house. Otherwise, those taking a casual stroll will speak of where the poor went, to a town called Zozo, a dangerous, seedy place where no one is to be trusted. When you reach the top of one of the buildings, you find that Terra is resting in her Esper state. An elderly man, Ramu, appears from the aether, while Terra loses her composure and tries to flee, crashing into the wall. She used a power she didn't understand, and now her body won't obey her. Ramu admits that he's an Esper, telling our heroes there was indeed a time when humans and Espers could live side by side, but that was before the War of the Magi. We learned that after the war, the Espers created a new realm to exile themselves into safety. It was 20 years ago that Emperor Gestal learned of the Esper realm, and the ones that were sucked out after the gate was put up are currently being held in the imperial capital, Vector. Only by recovering those Espers can we hope to ease Terra's tensions. Ramu cannot remain here to watch over Terra. The Emperor's method of extracting the power of the Espers is brutal and narrow-minded. The Emperor fails to understand that harnessing the power of the Espers is most effective once they've become magicite, which can only happen after they die. Ramu offers the power of 3 of his friends and his own life to help us challenge the Emperor with a careful reminder that their power is mighty. If it's used for destruction, the skies will darken and life will fade from the earth. After taking down Kefka's weaponry during the mission to infiltrate Vector, the team returns to Terra, where we show her the magicite of her father Maduin, and learn her backstory as the child of a human and an Esper. This revelation provides us with our next destination, the gate to the Esper world. But first we must head to Narshe. Bannon delivers the good news that Narshe has agreed to fight back. However, even with Figaro's technology and Narshe's scant military force, Bannon informs us we have to make a difficult but necessary decision. We have to open the gate to the Esper world, thereby providing us a battle on 2 fronts and a possibility to establish the bond of trust that once existed between humans and Espers. Everyone turns to Terra, who realizes she's the only one that can do it. She's proof of the possibility of mutual cooperation. However, when you arrive at the Imperial outpost protecting the gate, you find that the lights are on, but nobody's home. The swirling fog surrounding the sealed gate to the Esper world completes the atmosphere of a dark, forbidden place that should have been abandoned long ago. Terra transforms into her Esper form to initiate contact, but in our way stands the wicked jester, who read our team like a book, offering us Terra as a means to their end. As we face off with Kefka, the doors open. Out fly the Espers, furious and hell-bent. Our team is shaken, left lying on the wooden bridge above the craggy rocks and fogs of nowhere. And Kefka is blown away as the mountain holding the sealed gate caves in on itself, closing it forever. The team heads out, back to Vector, but the airship is not safe. As we attempt to return to Vector, we're struck down, the airship crashing and burning, damaging our means of transportation. The city of Vector is in a similar state of disrepair. The Imperial banners burn as Bannon and the returners try to make sense of the chaos. A confrontation with Emperor Gestal reveals that he's lost his will to fight. Sid confirms this as the truth, stating that the Espers came to save their friends. Shrieks of rage filled the skies as destruction rained down upon the Vectorians. Gestal doubles down and says that they must find a way to calm their rage, worrying that they'll destroy the whole planet if they're not stopped. We are invited to a dinner with the Emperor, but before we can attend, Sid asks us to quell the remaining stalwarts of war. At the dinner, Sid asks to sit with the returners during this open forum to ask the Emperor his thoughts on the battles to come and what battles have already been fought. The feast commences and Gestal offers a toast. A toast is offered to our homelands, and we're notified that Kefka has been imprisoned for his war crime and will be left to his own devices so he can stew on it. Gestal offers his condolences, but the matter is an inexcusable one. He continues by easing our concerns about Celes's loyalties. She did in fact turn coat against the Empire because of the lunacy of the war. The more you speak with the Emperor, the more he alleviates your worries that this is all a sham. He regrets his lust for power leading to this devastation. The madness and destruction came too close to home, so now he's remorseful for the Imperial actions done in his name. He's more concerned with the power of the Espers than ever before, fearful that they'll tear the entire world apart. He finds himself doubting his own ambitions, questioning whether the search for power was ever worth it. He can't take back the atrocities committed in his name, but he seemingly yearns for peace. Gestal tells us to head northward toward Crescent Island. There he will make contact with the Espers. The Emperor has ordered a ship to transport us from Albrook with General Leo. The Lion General makes his entrance, instantly recognizing Cyan and apologizing for his inability to put a stop to Doma's poisoning at the hands of Kefka. Cyan forgives him, not seeing him as liable for the atrocity. Once the feast concludes, the team assembles and discusses the matter. Locke and Edgar are distrusting of the Emperor, so the team splits up with Locke and Terra heading off to Albrook to meet with General Leo and the others to remain behind and occupy Vector with the rest of the returners. On the ship the following night, Terra has a late-night discussion with General Leo. He makes small talk with her to discuss how she's changed, while Terra comments on the curiosity of cooperating with the same people that made her a mind slave. General Leo tells her that people are people. Not everyone is like Kefka. Terra asks Leo about himself. What about you? Leo confesses that he understood what was done to Terra and why it was done. Yet he confides in Terra that because he stood by doing nothing, he is no better than Kefka. Terra approaches General Leo. She questions if it's possible for a human to love her, since her mother loved an Esper. General Leo assures her it is possible, but Terra casts doubt because, despite her feelings returning, she doesn't know what it means to feel love. General Leo reminds her that she's still young, so it's bound to happen. He retires to his chambers and leaves her on deck. Then Shadow pops out, having overheard the conversation. She wants to know if he has the answers she's seeking, but he does not. However, Shadow, from out of nowhere, says something very interesting. There are people in this world who've chosen to kill their own emotions. And just who exactly is he talking about? Emperor Gestal? Kefka? Himself? For now, that statement leaves Terra with more questions than answers. The end of the world sees a radical change for Terra. Holed up in Moblis, Terra has given up on the fight against Kefka. She's changed and has no more desire to fight. Moblis is in tatters. All the adults have died, leaving behind a town full of orphaned children. You learn from one of the children that Mom and Dad covered us when the lightning hit, and then they didn't move anymore after that. The only one there to protect them is Terra, whom the remaining residents all call Mama. Now they hide away from Kefka's light of judgment in the basement of one home. Terra tells us that she can't fight anymore. She has to stay behind to protect the children. She's the only one there to hold the whole village together, and the only one with enough strength to protect the village. Most importantly, she feels she's on the verge of understanding something important, but the more she searches for answers, the less will she has to fight. Suddenly, a terrible beast called Humbaba attacks while you're there, but Terra is felled mid-battle, leaving you to fight Humbaba off. You must leave Terra behind in her bed to recover, and search for the other members of your team before returning later to recruit Terra. For now, she relents that after a little more time has passed, and she understands what's happening to her, she'll help you take out Kefka, but the kids don't want to lose their mama. Later, when you return, you find that Katerine, a very young adult woman, has disappeared. Talking to the kids in Moblis helps you understand that her partner, Duncan, has done something to upset her. Actually, she's about to give birth to a fresh newborn child. Imagine the horrors of bringing new life into a world wasting away. Dwayne arrives to apologize to Katerine in hopes that they can build a life together with their child and put past troubles behind them. But then, Humbaba attacks. Terra asks us to help protect the city. She transforms into her Esper form after Humbaba drives the team away, and she defeats Humbaba. The children surround her, recognizing their mama is much more than a human. Terra finally recognizes what's been happening to her. Of course, Terra, fully free from her mind-controlling crown, has come in touch with her human side and started to feel love. With this feeling, she's motivated to protect the people she loves and to make the world a safe place for new lives. Terra tells Dwayne and Katerine and the children to take care of themselves. Katerine asks Terra to ensure a future for the children. With that, she takes on the responsibility of killing Kefka and restoring order to the world. Throughout the game, Terra struggles heavily with her identity as a human and an Esper. She finds it difficult to grasp how Espers and humans could come together, how she herself could even exist. Once she came in contact with a frozen Esper, she transformed herself, leading to a psychological breakdown shortly after breaking free from mind control. As mentioned before, she asks General Leo if it's even possible for a human to love someone like her. This poor girl is deeply insecure and unsure of her place in the world, but finding the children of Moblis gave her a sense of security and a sense of belonging that she desperately needed. Not only that, but if you take Terra with you to the underground kingdom where the old War of the Magi was fought, you'll find her moved by the history of the place. Odin fought to protect this land from those that would destroy it. Espers attacking humans, causing humans to release their Espers to attack Espers. By the end of the battle, only Lord Odin remains. He fights valiantly, cutting people in half, but it's not enough, for when the Phantom arrives, he can do no damage, fighting battle after battle until he is turned to stone. If you carry on through the castle, you can find a bookshelf where the queen kept her diary. Reading it reveals that she, a human, had fallen in love with an Esper, just like Terra's parents. This love was a forbidden love, but the flames of passion did not obey rule or reason. When the queen thinks of the noble Odin, her heart flutters and fans the flames yet more. Who could fault her? She writes that she hopes to tell him her true feelings when the fighting ends, but she never could. This moment reveals to Terra that she is not alone. She is not an anomaly. She is one of many. With her newfound confidence, Terra leads the charge against Kefka, fighting for love. After defeating the godlike clown, magic begins to fade from the world, and magicite starts exploding. Terra is weakened in her Esper form, but she assures everyone that she'll use the last of her power to guide everyone out to escape. She successfully leads everyone out as the last piece of magicite shatters. She slips out of the sky, just barely landing on the airship thanks to the best pilot flying the fastest airship in the world. The kids from Oblis managed to see their mama just before she fell down, and they return to Katarine to let her know what they've seen. Terra waves them off, and the game ends. Terra has found her place in this world. She does belong. The infamous experiment that seized the power to destroy the world is one of the most beloved antagonists in the Final Fantasy series. But where did he come from? Who is he? And how did he get so close to power in the first place? Let's start with what we do know. One man spreads news of all the soldiers in Vector having the ability to use magic at the Magitech research facility shortly before we sneak in. While telling us all the terrible news, he also casually mentions that Kefka is in fact Patient Zero for Cid's infusion experiments. Cid hadn't yet perfected the technique, so something inside Kefka's mind broke. One has to wonder what Kefka was like before. Perhaps he was always a menace to society. Soldiers never make mention of him changing, though they always compare him to the noble General Leo. No one really knows who he was or why he was chosen to be the first victim, except maybe Shadow. Remember those dreams Shadow had that showed his own tormenting troubles within? And how he left Barum behind to be caught by someone instead of killing him? Much of Shadow's behavior is left to interpretation, though there are some curiosities surrounding Kefka that reveal a bigger picture. Perhaps Shadow wanted to atone for his past failures, for the memories he spent his life running away from. He ran away instead of sparing his friend from whatever fate awaited Barum to save his own conscience. If Kefka is Barum, this is Shadow's atonement. Why else would he be sneaking around the Imperial encampment of Doma? How else can you explain the burial of Kefka upon the floating continent using the Warring Triad? He warns the others to go while he takes care of matters himself. Most importantly, once Kefka is killed, Shadow remains behind, his sin now atoned for, his rest coming peacefully. By killing Kefka, he can make up for allowing his former partner, Barum, to become this way, to make up for the destruction of the world, to make up for running away all those years ago. It is a far, far better thing that he did than he has ever done, and a far, far better rest that he goes to than he has ever known. Of course, that's just a theory, and it's not airtight. It's possible that the Empire would test out dangerous experiments like this on prisoners before using it on their own highly trained soldiers. But given the incredible power bestowed upon the subject, you'd think it'd be someone already loyal to the cause, rather than a prisoner that nearly died. It's more likely that Shadow just wants to get revenge and make up for his past mistakes. Anyway, all throughout the game, he is willing to go to great lengths to get what he wants. He shows no remorse, no compassion, and no signs of controlling himself. He's all id, baby. He's a nihilistic psychopath whose root cause is to sow destruction upon the masses, butchery his forte. As part of a ruse, the Emperor locks up Kefka and invites us to work with him on rounding up all the escaped Espers to bring them back to the Esper world. The Emperor does ask what we should do with him, and Kefka is clearly hidden away in a dank, dark cell. But it's not long before he shows up to tell General Leo what's really going on. It was all a ruse to have the Empire's enemies help with rounding up the Espers. When General Leo stands against Kefka, he shows his true colors. Kefka mocks the Lion General and berates him before finally putting him out of the way once and for all. Just as with Doma, Kefka shows zero mercy for his enemy, but now he'll no longer have to work hard to ensure his rival is not around to stop him. His rival is no more. He has both of the Emperor's ears, and with no cooler heads to prevail, the Empire is set to conquer the world. Once Kefka and Emperor Gestal finally take advantage of the Warring Triad, all hell breaks loose. The earth rips apart and a huge chunk of land floats above. in the sky. As Emperor Gestal begins to enjoy the fruits of his years of labor, Kefka once again shows what he's really about. He doesn't want anyone in his way. Opposing him is a surefire way to make sure he's dancing mad. Kefka pushes the warring triad away from each other, destabilizing the balance and allowing him to take in their incredible strength. He begins by killing the Emperor and tossing him aside as if he's nothing but a sack of bad meat. Shadow tries to put a stop to him, but to no avail. Kefka uses his incredible powers to his advantage and wreaks havoc on the world. From that day on, the world changed forever. Countless die in the coming reign of destruction. Cities are torn apart by Kefka's judgment of light. Families are disintegrated. Most everyone lives in fear of Kefka, save for the cultists that circle around in a nihilistic fugue state of worship for the banality of oblivion. The world is a wasteland with no hope. People pine for the days of old, believing they'll never return. That is, until Celes, at her lowest moment, finds one ray of hope in a dark, dark world, and brings the team together for one final showdown with Kefka. With the entire team face to face with him, Kefka prepares himself for a fight he's been expecting. He taunts the team by flexing his godlike powers, lifting up Sabin and Terra, when Strago stands up to Kefka by saying, "People can always rebuild, and new lives will always be born." Kefka gives one of the most harrowing responses. "Time will destroy all those as well." This is a man for which nothing means anything, and anything means nothing. He wants to be the king of the ashes in a self-destructive drive toward oblivion. Why do people insist on creating things that will inevitably be destroyed? Why do people cling to life, knowing that they must someday die, knowing that none of it will have meant anything once they do? This is a man that lives for nothingness. No past to reflect on, no present to live in, and no future to look forward to. His very existence an abomination against humanity. His soul diametrically opposed to the essence of life. But Strago won't be dismayed. It's not the end that matters. It's this present moment, right now, the journey, something you've worked for, something worth protecting. Kefka remains unfazed, coldly asking if we found our somethings in this broken world that's dying. And of course, our heroes have found everything worth working for and worth protecting. Each one of them fights for one thing. The one thing in this life all of us should find worth fighting for. The one thing that we all need. The one thing we all desire, succinctly stated by Terra. Love. Amidst the chaos, Kefka venomously asserts he'll destroy every last happy thing we have found. He attacks the planet, calling us dirt. He wants to create an empire of death, but Strago assures him that this will never work, as people will always have dreams. Kefka loses it and says, "No! When I'm through, there won't be anything left to dream about." At last, the team is ready to battle with Kefka. Formed in 3 waves, this battle for the fate of the world's hope is an intense one, backed by a masterful, progressive soundtrack that reflects the sporadic nature of Kefka's interiority. Kefka himself has transformed into a towering monstrosity. The entire structure of Kefka's tower courses through the demonic figure, both organic and mechanic. The first layer of hell, a muscular monster from whence all suffering protrudes from. The mecha-organic growths stem from the root demon of hell into greater heights where more horrors await. Here, humanoid figures in varying states of despair remain bonded to the tree of might, each figure mirroring a different state of anguish, each figure a shadow of Kefka's rage, of his disconnected mind. The one on the bottom seemingly trying to escape this hell, while the one next to him seems to be trying to rip it apart. The one on the left trying to break free from the stems, but held in place by the pipes, all of them, much like the woman, chained to their fate as the watchful eye of Kefka looks on, a upon a beast. The beast, tiger-like, visually symbolizing the might of the Magitech armor of the Empire. Reaching the pinnacle shows you the top of the tower of the mecha-organic tendrils. Sitting upon them is another visage of Kefka at rest beneath a floating woman. Surely this image speaks to Kefka's ultimate desire to be all alone, at ease in his rest from the dancing madness he's suffered through since the experiment. Each of these segments reveal a piece of his fragmented mind. Once all of those are defeated, Kefka reveals his true self. Having sprouted wings, it's time to reckon with God and put a stop to him. The wings that have sprout from his back are demonic and angelic, while he is adorned in scarlet robes falling off of him before the radiant light of the sun. This is the final showdown, the epic battle for the future. Kefka does everything in his power to put a stop to our heroes, but they are motivated by something far stronger than any force of strength that Kefka could use. They have made the difficult choice to fight back, to build a better future, to put a stop to the festering nihilism of the day and bring about hope once again. At this point, our heroes cannot and will not be stopped. They will fight this war to the bitter end, and they do. When Kefka begins to wither away into nothingness, he can only say, life, dreams, hope. Where do they come from, and where do they go? With no answers, he drifts away into dust as the rest of the world slowly begins losing all magic. Our heroes escape in humorous vignettes as the pages of a book flip through to tell the tales of a long and storied history. This moment but a brief chapter reflecting a dark age in a world that's bounced back, in a world that's found hope. Cyan said it best when he wrote his final letter to Lola. We humans have a tendency to become trapped in the past and refuse to move on. This one message acts as a through line for all the pain throughout the game. The Emperor's hunt for espers due to a 1,000-year-old war led him down the warpath and resulted in the destruction of the world. While people live in terror under Kefka's rule, they are too scared to act, yet yearn solely for the past. Shadow and Cyan are both haunted by nightmares because they feel they've failed loved ones. And Celes throws her life away carelessly when she feels all hope is lost. But of course, the one thing keeping her going is the same thing that Terra fought for, that they all fought for, love. Once she saw Locke's bandana, she felt a spark of hope for the future, a possibility that there is good in this world and it is worth fighting for. Why do people insist on creating things that will inevitably be destroyed? Love. Why do people cling to life knowing that they must someday die? Love. Except all of it will have meant something to someone. This game is a passionate wake-up call to not give up on this beautiful world we live in, to not fall into the abyss of oblivion, devoid of all hope. The desire to destroy is unnatural. As General Leo said, a person is a person, and a person feels love. A person needs love, and a person needs to give love. The will to continue on, the dreams we have and share, and the hopes we will into existence all come from the same source, love. Whether it's Edgar sacrificing his own desires for his brother's needs, Locke's ambitions to make right what went horribly wrong, or Lola writing letters to her wounded partner despite never receiving a response in the world of ruin. People, all people, are in the mood for love. Hell, even the characters of the opera were motivated by love, ever awaiting the day they'll be reunited with their chosen one. Duncan and Katarine bring a beautiful child into a world with an uncertain future, but a future that can be made better. Love gives people hope. It creates the future we all want to see, a better tomorrow. Memories of the world before the fall remain, but the light of dawn doth never change, nor err the hearts of men.